Okay, I think the time is up. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the first webinar about the electrically assisted pedal bicycles. I'm going to share with you basic data and selected comparisons. I hope you can see my presentation on your screens. And to start with the first slide, I would suggest that a standard presentation starts with an earthquake, then the tension gradually increases. This presentation is intended to smoothly lead you through the clear paths to hybrid mobility, that is, active mobility combined with electric assistance, leading to modern multimodality in mostly urban environments. I'm trying to... Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. The agenda of the webinar is the following. At the beginning, I'm going to provide you with basic definitions, then proceed to the classification of cyclists according to several criteria. I will then discuss the electrically assisted bicycles in the context of their close and not so close substitutes. I will conclude the presentation with certain conclusions and invite you to the discussion after the presentation of results of research conducted in Finland, which is going to be given by our friend Petteri Nissula. Definition. This, according to Polish road traffic law, it is a pedelec is an electrically assisted bicycle which is defined in the legislation of certain EU countries, such as Poland, in an inclusive way. It may be found in the definition of just a bicycle, as standard conventional bicycles. The only difference is the presence of auxiliary electric propulsion system. And as you see, I have highlighted in the definition things that are limits, because there is another category of electrically assisted bikes, the so-called speed pedelecs, which are subject to different legislation and different constraints. But let's look at the standard bicycle, electric bike. I feel that my animations do not work with this screen. But anyhow, the electric motor may assist the muscle power of the user either at the hood of the front wheel, at the rear wheel, or at the bottom bracket axle near the pedals. The battery may be installed at the down tube or at the rear luggage rack, with the control panel at the fingertips of the user on the handlebars. All these parts, which are additions to standard bikes, are marked in a red color on your screen. The next slide shows one of potential lists of strengths of the pedelecs and their perceived weaknesses. These are by far not exhaustive lists, which may be extended with the list of strengths of cycling as a transport mode and their weaknesses raised by different groups of opponents of cycling. My preference is to draw your attention here to the last strength on the list. The pedelecs, sometimes in bike sharing systems, help to substantially raise the status of cycling as a transport mode in urban policies. And consider it not just as a sport discipline, but a transport mode. The next slide shows the weaknesses and the ways of coping with them. In public information campaigns and policies, I think Petteri will provide you with some insight about that. Consider, for example, the much higher purchase price. It may be contrasted with the comparison of the operating costs with the operating cost of a conventional car. As far as higher weight is concerned, you may claim that if you provide safe storage at the ground level and easy grab factor, it means easiness to start riding a bicycle without much ado, this weakness may be overcome. If there is more complicated construction, the way out of this weakness is to assure proper services or use the pedelec in a bike sharing system. When it concerns the time of recharging the battery, you may replace the batteries instead and provide special shocks which provide this kind of service. When we speak about less obvious positive impact on users' health, we may motivate to cycle more or longer distances or in a more demanding terrain, and this weakness may be overcome. But of course, this may be discussed in more detail. But I think we may move to this next slide. That is the classification of cyclists. We may claim that there are 4 groups of utility cyclists. I think that one slide, this is the slide I'm trying to comment now. We have to bear in mind that cyclists are the most varied, heterogeneous group of road users as far as their fitness, experience, and assertiveness in traffic is concerned. We can see a kind of continuum from athletes training to take part in triathlon events via mammals to young girls and elderly ladies. For those who are not familiar with the jargon of cycling promoters, a mammal is a middle-aged man in lycra, usually former active sportsmen which continue to cycle by habit. If we want to exploit the chances provided with the invention and popularization of pedelecs among the general public and political decision makers, we need to consider the needs of the interested but concerned, which is explained in the next slide. As you see, there are a small group, the strong and fearless. Each group has different concerns about what is the best infrastructure for riding a bike in urban context. The challenge is that the strong and fearless, as well as many of those who are enthused and confident, I hope there are some among us, the listeners or participants in this webinar, are actively skeptical about the advantages of promotion of pedelecs and the need to build dedicated cycling tracks. Another challenge is to persuade those who say no way, no how, that pedelec trips may be considered as substitutes of car trips, or that the extension of high-quality cycling infrastructure, cycle superhighways, and generally promotion of cycling may improve the driving environment in a city not clogged with the excessive number of cars. If we want to promote the use of pedelecs, we need to understand the sense of promoting cycling as such. There are plenty of reasons to promote cycling as a daily transport mode. They are included in the brochure, 20 good reasons for cycling. I'm going to provide you with a report after the webinar. I'll be addressed to read it. But we need to compare the e-bikes or pedelecs with what? Either conventional pedal bicycles or speed pedelecs or moped scooters or motorcycles, e-cars or conventional cargo bikes. Quite interesting are the advantages of cargo bikes with electrical assistance. They may be an interesting answer to challenges resulting from the growing problems of city logistics, the problem of the last mile of many courier companies, and the problem of escorting children to kindergartens and schools, which take up a large part of the morning traffic jams. This table compares the operating costs of riding a bicycle or a pedelec with the cost of alternative individual or collective, sustainable or unsustainable modes of transport. We could extend this comparison with considerations of the cost of infrastructure and health benefits or costs related with the propensity to use active versus the passive transport modes given in the table. Costs of walking or using kick scooters or e-scooters are not included for the sake of clarity. So as you see, the EcoBike is only 20 euro cents, the cost of, out-of-pocket cost of traveling 100 kilometers. This is an argument to show that the price of pedelec is a good investment because the operating costs are nil in comparison with the cost of operating a petrol-fueled car, which are given at the bottom, 62 times more. I'm trying to apply the, there it is. Infrastructure seems to be the main source of concern for many decision makers. It is important to underline a number of myths connected with its development, often encountered among people who with little actual experience with daily cycling in really cycle-friendly towns and cities. Many of those myths result from the cult of speed driving practiced among many decision makers in the new EU countries. Mobility is too serious a problem to be decided by traffic engineers only, which usually puts stress on the throughput capacity and speed of drivers and don't adopt a kind of systemic, sustainable approach to traffic planning. So as you see, traffic calming by a number of people is considered as a form of discrimination of drivers. So these are the opinions which need to be addressed. I'm not going to dwell more on this list, but move towards the showing you the potential of development of utility cycling in European urban areas. These two slides show the potential of utility cycling in the European urban areas, the structure of trip lengths. In the towns and cities of the old 15 EU countries, 30% of car trips were less than 2 kilometers long, while 50% of them are less than 5 kilometers long. If there are school children escorting trips in the morning, they may belong to the most ridiculous car trips, or should be considered at least as unnecessary car trips, which are easily replaceable by cycling trips. If you prefer linear graphs, this is a curve which shows the distribution of trip lengths in the large agglomeration of Berlin. It is very asymmetrical, isn't it? Can you imagine to live without a car in a large world city that Berlin is? It is a serious consideration for many inhabitants of Berlin. As a result of consistent sustainable development policies, the number of cars per 1,000 inhabitants in that city has been gradually declining since more than a decade. It resulted inter alia from the promotion of combination of two modes, cycling and local regional rail transport, Underground, Schnellbahn und U-Bahn. Compact cities in polycentric agglomeration. This is the model of future urban living. More about that in the next slides. This division of the entire Tri-City area, that is Gdansk, Sopot and Gdynia, includes the development of smooth bike or pedelec and rail connections. This map, prepared over 11 years ago, shows that the catchment area of the local railway network covers nearly the entire agglomeration of Gdansk, Gdynia and Sopot. If we consider 10-minute cycling commuting trips as an acceptable minimum to keep us healthy. The red circles are the catchment area for those who use bicycles, for the local railway stations. The blue circles, the smaller ones, are the catchment area if we consider walking as the only feasible active mobility mode in the city. A trip made on a pedelec extends the size of the catchment area substantially. This slide shows that how productive it may be to combine promotion of e-cycling with local and regional public railway networks. Promoting eco-mobility, intermodality and multimodality, the words you use are not so important. The sense of promoting alternatives to car trips for any distance are. So the question is whether it makes sense to support alternative to conventional car trips from public funds and how to do it. Ulrich Züber, president of the Allgemeine Deutsche Fahrradclub, the German advocacy organization, has shown that public spending on e-mobility development may bring much more efficient results if it is redirected or redirected to support the development of electrically assisted cycling. Clear message with pictures and numbers. 600 million of subsidies to the e-car industry resulted in the purchase of 7,000 e-cars. 0 subsidies to the pedelec industry resulted in the purchase of 1.3 million pedelecs in Germany until 2013. And the trend continued during the last 5 years. The rate of growth of pedelec sales amounted to something like 15% per year. If we compare in a linear fashion the dynamics of development of the e-bicycle and e-car markets, you may say that the picture is even clearer. It means that we need better funded cycling infrastructure development programs, which will bring a number of benefits, not only in the form of improved transport systems, efficiency of transport systems, but also in greatly improved health and the general quality of urban life. The challenge that we need to cope with is how to raise the status of cycling in general in the urban mobility agenda. E-cycling may be an important factor in this process. It may serve as a catalyst of change in the mindset of the general public and the decision makers. It is a closer substitute of car journeys than the normal bike. As you see, e-bikes may become an important element of local bike sharing systems and important partners improving the financial viability of local and regional railway operators. So this is a win-win situation. And growing popularity of e-bikes may stimulate the development of flagship cycling infrastructure projects, such as high-quality collision-free cycling corridors, e.g. along rivers and local and regional railway lines called cycling superhighways, which are considered seriously in quite a number of countries. This is the last slide. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'd like to share with you the opinion that electrically assisted cycling mobility in some countries has already attained the maturity stage. In many countries, however, it is still at its infancy, like the girl on the running bike in the picture. We may be sure, however, that its future is potentially very interesting and inspiring. It is not necessary to invent the wheel anew. We may study and get inspired with the framework of international cooperation in this fascinating area. There are 3 aspects which are the main pillars of the e-cycling promotion agenda: infrastructure, hardware, education, information and promotion measures, software, and proper institutional setting, hardware. All of them need to be properly nurtured and addressed. The discussion that we start with will help to strengthen all the above-mentioned aspects in our local environments. Now I pass the control of the webinar to Petteri, just a moment, and he will give you the next presentation. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Petteri Nisula from Helsinki Region Environmental Services. I'm here project manager of this e-bike project. And I'm going to show my presentation about e-bike promotion in Helsinki metropolitan region. So here's the content what I will be talking about. Firstly, I will talk about our Virta Fillarin electricity to bike marketing campaign, and then about e-bike testing campaign at Korkeasaari Zoo, and thirdly our e-bike testing events in different kind of areas and also in Finnish Parliament. So We launched this Virtaa Fillarin, which means electricity to bike campaign at mid of the April. There was this application period when we were looking for test families to take part of this. We call it human experiment. And we have the application period was 1 month, and we got over 900 registrations, and it got lots of media attention too, and that was of course the reason why so many people were trying to register. We finally chose 4 families, and they had these e-bikes in June, when they made also all kind of social media content about their experiment. There you can see some of these posts, and they do it by their own social media, like their own Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. But then we also got chance to put in our social media channels. We made also 4 films about their experiment. I was going to show this one, but when we tried it before the session started, we found out that the quality of the film went so bad that it's no point to show it. But we have made 4 films, and we have made also English version about every one of them. And if somebody wants to use them, they are free to use it. I can send these films. And we have also made this sort of clear versions of films where there is no text. So if somebody, for example, wants to put some maybe Polish text to the film, it's possible. And of course you can make little changes to the film and put your own logos and so on. We will be happy if somebody wants to do that and use our films in their campaign. But these films are in YouTube. Actually now only this one English version is in YouTube, but I can send all of them if somebody wants them. And there is this address where you can find it on the YouTube if you want. Another thing that we did was this e-bike testing campaign at Korkeasaari Zoo. It was end of May and beginning of June. And because we are like targeting families, and especially families who own second cars, and we were thinking where we can reach these families, and one good place is Korkeasaari Zoo, because most families comes there by car. So we did this testing campaign together with this e-bike taxi company. And the parents could try e-biking, and the children, or also another parent, could drive with e-bike taxi. And I think this sort of campaign, it's possible almost everywhere. But one thing what should be considered is the place. The Korkeasaari Zoo was perfect place for this sort of campaign because the distance from parking yard to the gate of the zoo is almost like half a kilometer, and there is also little hills, and there are possibilities to use different kind of routes to it. And also this this testing was also possible from gate to the parking yard. And in 2 week time, almost 100 families participated in this campaign, and the feedback was very positive. And for example, families, when they were coming from the zoo, the children were maybe a little bit tired and didn't want to walk anymore because they have been walking in this Korkeasaari so much. So they were very happy that they got chance to put the or children to go to the e-taxi, and the parents could drive with e-bikes. There you see that the upper island is where the parking yard is, and the lower island is actually the island where the zoo is. We made also a couple of films in Korkeasaari, and one of them is also in English. We have this producing company that was making this one film, and we also made some films by myself, and then we find out that, for example, when you wanted to have their reactions after the test drive, their happy reactions, and how they were surprisingly happy that it was so great to drive e-bike. Uh, to have this filmed by mobile phone was maybe easier than with this film company with their big cameras and big crew. So that's one thing that we will certainly consider when we are making films in future, that in some purposes maybe this lighter camera better than having this large film company doing things. We have also have lots of e-bike testing events, because in Finland we have studies that show that people have very wrong impressions about e-bikes. They are thinking that they are maybe only for elderly people or somehow restrict people. So when they have a chance to try e-bikes, the image becomes much more positive, and they are thinking that maybe this could be also for me or our family. We have 3 piloting areas. Each of these are in, one of them is in Helsinki, one of them in Vantaa, and one of them in Espoo. And these are areas where the rate of families owning 2 cars is high, and they also have some railway or metro connection to the city center, because our target group is families who own 2 cars, and if they want to replace their car by bike, it's good that they have another options, and metro and local train will serve in that purposes. Here are some pictures about our happenings. They have been very different kind of smaller and bigger ones, and some of them we have got media attention. For example, we have in Helsinki Day test happening in city center near Finlandia Hall, and the national TV made a report about that. But the feedback has been very positive, and One thing we have learned that it's good to go in these bigger happenings when we have been trying to organize test happening just around e-bikes. Normally it has been not so successful, but when there has been some other event and we have gone with them, so there has been lots of people already, and then it's easier to get people testing e-bikes. One thing that we did, or we are going to do tomorrow, is this e-bike tour to Parliament of Finland, and they were also very happy. First, we were supposed to do only one of these tours, but they were so happy about the first one, and they asked that if we could do it again, and we are going to do it tomorrow. It was right in the city center, and there was also this theme about climate change and environmental friendly city, and there were certain things that we were seeing there. So that was my presentation. I hope I have kept the schedule. Now I'm going to change this presentation to Piotr. So thank you very much, and I will be happy to answer any questions, and you can also send me emails if you want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Petteri, for this inspiring presentation. I hope that the presentation were inspiring enough to inspire the minds of our participants to share some ideas or to share the questions that could appear in their minds while watching the presentations and listening to the presenters. So if anybody would like to make a contribution, please feel welcome. This is a challenge for me. I have never yet been conducting such a webinar without seeing the faces of participants. But I think we will cope with the challenge because the subject is so inspiring. What were the questions that appeared in your mind? If someone wants to ask, please do.
So maybe I will start, Grzegorz from Gdańsk, and we are now facing, we have completed a part of our promotion campaign of e-bikes, just as they did in Helsinki and just as they are in the process in Helsinki. And my finding, one of my findings in this promotion campaign is that people absolutely change their mind about the e-bike when they test it by themselves. When I try an e-bike, I completely change my point of view. And this is probably one of the most valuable parts of those campaigns, testing the e-bikes by themselves. So the image of the e-bikes in the beginning is not that good. People think that it is mostly for the elderly people or for people with some disabilities or for people who are not too fit to fight the hills of the city. But actually when they try themselves by themselves, they absolutely change their mind. This is just my point of view.
Thank you very much, Grzegorz. I think the consideration of the e-bike promotion as a catalyst of change in the mindset is of crucial importance. I think this shows that, that there is truth in the proverbial statement made by the British that the proof is in the pudding. Unless you try it, you don't know how it tastes. And perhaps I will introduce to your minds a new word that I have learned during the Velocity conference in France, Nantes. This in French it goes serendipité. In English it would go serendipity, which means that if you expect something to happen, you feel that the real experience after something happening may be worse than you expected. But sometimes something happens that exceeds your expectation. And I think this is the case with the e-bikes for those who have tried it for longer periods. So promotion is an important part, but in combination with just actual practice. What are the other comments on questions that you'd like to share? It's not easy when you don't see the listeners, but I definitely encourage you. Perhaps in normal webinars, there is a phase where all the participants share their expectations or share their experience with the e-bikes. This is not an easy task when we sit at individual screens, but perhaps I will ask the question to all participants. Could you give just a short comment or short experience of yours that you have with e-biking? Perhaps we'll start with our friends from Italy. Comune di Vicenza. Mia conoscenza della lingua italiana è molto limitata, but I think we can proceed in English. Alex. Peter Lindgren. I'm sorry I have not met you in person, but could you share your experiences with e-bikes? And perhaps you can say something about your shape or way of getting involved in the project, whether you are a representative of some municipality or cycling promotion organization or expert or any other role. I see that there are quite a number of telephones switched on, but I don't hear the voices.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Maybe I could add a comment from the German view. So for your question, maybe.
Could you introduce yourself, Marika?
Yes. I work for the Hamburg University of Applied Science. We are the lead partner of the BSR-electric project, and I'm environmental scientist, and we are working on e-mobility in Hamburg. More the social aspects and governance conditions, and here we in Hamburg, the e-bikes are more for older people and not so so usually used in the urban living, more the e-cars at the current state. In the touristical regions, we have more and more e-bikes also for the older people, but I see a lot of potential for families with child to use also e-bikes in the urban districts to transport the kind of yeah, we need a change status of e-bikes in the public brains. So I think that is very important for that. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Marek, very much. I feel that there is some kind of relationship, a mutual relationship. If cycling is not considered as a serious urban transport mode, is considered as a leisure time, it is not easy to promote e-biking as a sound substitute for car driving, which is most beneficial for the general image of the city and therefore the quality of life in the city. But I think this is a good starting point to promote enjoyment as the most important feeling while riding a bike, which is confirmed by a number of surveys in cycle-friendly cities like Copenhagen or Amsterdam, that enjoyment is the very important factor motivating to cycle in general. And of course, the adequate cycling infrastructure is also very helpful in this. Okay, I'd like to hear some other comments, perhaps from the southern Baltic area or from the eastern Baltic area. Artus?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm Artus from Riga, Latvia. We're partners in this project, a private company called Ardenis. But in this case, I would more of my own experience using an e-bike. And this is actually also more of a leisure, not so much of a transport use. Well, this year in April, together with a group of friends, we went to Italy and took a tour, big long tour of road to Florence, making on average 50 to 70 kilometers per day. So that means a total distance around 350 to 400 kilometers. And the bikes were taken around from Latvia, and he's trying to make also of the organizing groups like this to different interesting and what I can say, I have used before for shorter tours of e-bike, but this is a different experience when you can make a tour in a very nice landscape and see much more from the area than you can do it in a car or by foot. So it was a very positive experience, and I think if this could be developed more in different areas, both in Baltics and other parts of Europe, it will be very beneficial for people using more e-bikes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Artus. I think your story confirms that it is a good starting point to promote tourist cycling when we speak about the need to attract public funding, public assistance for the promotion, for the development of e-biking and generally e-mobility. We can say that it may, the promotion of tourist cycling may be a tool to show that cycling is image enhancing, showing the region, the local city or the local region attractive for cycling tourists. But I think we need to bear in mind that there is something like a pyramid to effectively promote a given city or a given region as a cycling-friendly area, we need to provide good conditions for the local cycling population. This is a concept of the so-called cycling pyramid, that the basic needs of the people are the daily cycling needs, daily mobility needs of the local population. If they are well developed, the safety and the comfort of people who want to cycle are assured, the region may effectively be promoted as attractive for cycle tourism, which may be an important part of the total tourist market. Thank you very much, Arthurs. I'd like to encourage other participants to eventually share their sympathies and experiences. There is one technical remark. If you don't speak, please switch off your phone. It means touch the arrow of your cursor, the phone on the screen, so that it becomes red when you don't speak. When you want to speak, you may switch on again. So the next person on my list is Peter Lindgren. Peter, are you there? Let's see, one of the challenges of the manager is to manage the silence, which appears after some motivating statements. But whoever wants to join, please do it, don't hesitate. I'm sorry not to be able to recognize all your names. I see.
Maybe I can give you some. Actually, there is a question to everyone. Do you believe that cities or regions should change their policies of adjusting cities to bicycles, to cycling, when they want to increase the number of e-bikes, when they want to promote e-biking or make more people on the bikes, on the e-bikes? So should cities or regions change the policies when they want to increase e-biking? What do you think? Does the e-bike differs that much from normal bike? Should the infrastructure be different? Just a little food for thought. Actually, I can give you my opinion. When you consider e-bike as a mode of transport, according to law, with which you cannot go faster than 25 kilometers per hour, you can perfectly stay with the infrastructure you develop for normal cycling, for normal bicycles, and you don't have to change anything. That is my personal thoughts. If you go for pedelec, if you want to use e-bikes which are not allowed, which can go faster than 25 kilometers per hour, you should change your infrastructure. But anyway, you cannot use them on normal infrastructure, normal bicycle tracks in cities, at least in Poland.
If I may add some food for thought, I know that in Holland, when the cycling infrastructure is very well developed, there are wide two-way cycling tracks separate from the main carriageway. The mopeds or scooters, which are propelled with traditional motors, are allowed to use the cycling tracks, which is not very convenient for those people who are not familiar with cycling on the carriageway. I felt while cycling in Amsterdam, I felt a little bit awkward, but I think when you get accustomed to the presence of scooters, you may survive. But scooters are not very popular in Holland. The question is that the speed pedelecs are much easier to operate than the scooters, and that they are not producing noise. So the usual behavior of the cyclist in Holland when he hears the motor, the internal combustion engine of the scooter behind you, you just keep to the right, and the scooter driver passes you, overcomes you. But I think we need to develop the notion that cycling is not dangerous, is not risky, if the infrastructure is well built and maintained. The challenge for the city planners is to make the cycling infrastructure cycling easy, to make cycling easy in that infrastructure. And it is the challenge is to show that promoting walking and cycling is something that are not contradictory, that you may promote both transport modes, if we can use the term, because walking is rarely considered as a transport mode. And of course, you need to promote respect among different road users, which is very well pronounced in the concept of shared space, so that cyclists and pedestrians and pedelec users may share the same space if they respect one another. But this is a long story, but I would like to use this webinar to share your experience with cycling in general and with e-biking in particular. Could you eventually provide? I see that there are quite a number of people who have not yet taken the floor. Feel encouraged. Evelina?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Could you share your experience?
Actually, I am a completely new person in relation to e-bikes. I have just jumped one day ago to the project of BSR-electric, and maybe over what I could say, I think that it's very important to have expectations which are not fixed, and to be open to try something new. And I hope that during this project I also will get those experiences, and I can also be like part of this research. And in relation to infrastructure, I can say only based on my own private experiences, I think sometimes it seems that in rural areas, not in city center, maybe it's quite challenging to use bikes. I'm not sure, it's only first thoughts, because if you know Helsinki structure of Helsinki city, after ring road 3, we have quite bad small road connections which are going from the city, the center of city of Helsinki. I think it could be one of barriers to use such kind of vehicles as bikes by families with kids. It's my first thoughts. Thank you.
My question to you, Evelina, is do you have experience in cycling by yourself for daily,
Yeah.
I mean, utility, daily cycling?
Yes, yes, of course. I'm cycling as much as it possible in Finnish environment. It's half a year I'm cycling every day, from home to school, kindergarten, and to work. Yes, I'm active cycler, but regular bicycle, not e-bike.
No conventional bicycle.
Yeah.
Do you think that if you switch towards the convention to the e-bike, to the pedelec, it will be some advantage for you, some benefits?
Based on only on theoretical thoughts, I think it could be advantage, but I'm not sure because if I'm reflecting to my own environment, we have I'm living, it's like about 2 kilometers from community train, and we have quite highly landscape. I don't know. Maybe I have to try first. I'm not sure how it will work. I know how I can use my own muscles when I'm using this regular bike, but I don't know how it will be work on e-bike.
So I think the practice makes the master. So my suggestion is that you will find some rental company that would rent you an e-bike so that you would be able to negotiate the hills more easily.
Yes.
That you'll become addicted to e-biking as well.
Yes, and I think I will next issue related to this new for me project. I will try e-bike some period of time, not just one drive, and then I can share experiences with you. Yeah.
Great. Okay, I understand there are some other participants who have not yet taken the floor or even left our conversation. I'm trying to find on the list. This is a challenge in this kind of webinar. Okay, what about Alex? I think you have not taken part in the conversation yet. Alex, are you there? Hello, hello. So, Alex, are you there? There is still Tinu Hein, if I pronounce the name. Tinu, are you there? Well, if the motivation is low, I'd like to thank you very much for your contributions. I'm going to write a brief summary of the findings that we could discuss during the webinar and provide you with data about the changing pattern of e-bike users, because in most of cities or countries that e-biking started to be promoted, the use of the e-bikes by the elderly was quite widespread, and they were considered as the only target group. In fact, it appeared that when the e-biking becomes a popular activity, there are more target groups which find benefits from e-biking and e-biking promotion. And of course, it had repercussions on the promotion of cycling as such, and promotion of cycling as a daily transport mode, not only for a leisure time. But I think the real world that we cope with, that we live in, cannot be divided into categories that don't have common parts. It means that cycling to school or cycling to work, commuting, cycling trips may be also source of relaxation or enjoyment that is experienced during leisure time cycling. So there is no contradiction between promotion of daily cycling and promotion of leisure cycling in a natural environment. I would like to focus your attention on the potential of the super cycling highways that are promoted in Britain, in Holland and in Denmark and in Germany as well. The greatest potential are the collision-free cycling routes along rivers or along the railway corridors, which encourage the railway companies to cater for the needs of the local inhabitants, and there is a potential synergy between the development of e-biking, because it extends largely the catchment area of railway stations. These are, when you practice this in a polycentric region which is well connected by local railway systems, these are trivial statements, but I think for the densely populated areas of the European countries, it may be an important potential ally. The railway companies that promote cycling to their stations and promote proper bicycle parking on the station, the so-called Fahrradstation concept developed in Holland and in North Rhine-Westphalia. You may use the internet to find a number of presentations about the advantages resulting from the construction of Fahrradstation, the bicycle stations at the railway, at the local and the regional railway stations. Well, if you don't have any other remarks, please share them. If you don't, I would like to tell you all the best and look forward to cooperation in other areas during the project.
Thank you.
Thank you very much from
Thank you.
organizing. Yes, many thanks to all of you to be here, and many thanks to Piotr for sharing your experience and perfect hosting of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, have a good day. Happy cycling.
Yeah.